5 experiments that killed thousands of people intentionally. Governments and scientists conducted them in secret. Most victims were never told the truth. The last one had 0 survivors. Number 5. The Guatemala syphilis experiments. What if a United States government agency deliberately infected over 1,000 people with sexually transmitted diseases and then documented the suffering for a study that produced no useful medical data? Between 1946 and 1948, the U.S. Public Health Service exposed 1,300 Guatemalan soldiers, prisoners, psychiatric patients, and sex workers to syphilis, gonorrhea, and chancroid. Most had no idea they were being experimented on. Researchers infected female sex workers, then paid them to transmit the diseases to prisoners and soldiers. For those who refused, scientists manually infected them by smearing bacteria into open wounds, eyes, rectum, and urethra. Only 700 received any treatment. By the end of 1953, 83 were dead. Blindness, insanity, organ failure. The lead researcher, John Charles Cutler, had previously worked on Tuskegee. He brought the same disregard for human life to Guatemala. The experiments remained hidden for over 60 years. When exposed in 2010, President Obama apologized. The Guatemalan government called it a crime against humanity. None of the perpetrators faced prosecution. 83 died. Deliberate infection. No cure offered. But the next experiment lasted 4 decades. Scale changes everything. Number 4. The Tuskegee syphilis study. 400 African-American men were told they were receiving free medical treatment. The treatment never came. They were left to die from a disease that became treatable in the 1940s, while researchers watched and documented their decline. The Tuskegee study began in 1932 in Alabama. The U.S. Public Health Service enrolled 600 sharecroppers, 399 with syphilis, 201 without. They told the men they had bad blood. The actual plan was to observe the disease until death. When penicillin became available in the 1940s, a miracle cure, the Public Health Service deliberately withheld it. They told the men they were being treated. They were not. The study ran for 40 years. 28 died directly from syphilis. 100 more died from complications: blindness, insanity, paralysis, organ failure. At least 40 spouses contracted the disease. 19 children were born with congenital syphilis. The study continued until 1972, when a reporter broke the story. The government settled for $10 million, but never admitted wrongdoing. 100 dead, 40 years of observation. At least it was one location. The next experiment was an entire compound, with 20,000 people inside. Number 3. Nazi medical experiments. Josef Mengele stood on the Auschwitz platform and decided with a gesture who would live and who would be tortured. He wanted twins, particularly children. Nazi doctors conducted experiments on at least 15,750 documented victims in concentration camps. Mengele alone worked with hundreds. Victims were subjected to sterilization tests using iodine and X-rays. Freezing experiments where prisoners were dunked in ice water until they lost consciousness. Pressure chambers that crushed organs or made eyes pop from their sockets. Mengele's obsession was twins. He would photograph them, measure them, draw their blood. Once examinations were complete, he killed them with phenol injections to the heart. Then came the autopsies and dissections, where he could examine organs and tissues. One victim described twins sewn together back to back to create conjoined twins. Another recalled being submerged in alternating hot and cold water, while Mengele beat her with a stick if she tried to surface for air. Thousands died. Many more survived with permanent mutilation and psychological destruction. Mengele escaped to South America after the war. He was never prosecuted. He died in Brazil in 1979, a free man. Thousands dead at Auschwitz. One doctor, one camp. But the facility at number 2 had 20,000 staff. It was a city dedicated to one purpose: weaponizing human death. Number 2. Unit 731. Between 1933 and 1945, Japan operated a secret facility near Harbin in occupied Manchuria, where thousands of prisoners were deliberately infected with plague, anthrax, cholera, and typhus. They were not given treatment. They were killed afterwards so their bodies could be dissected while fresh. Unit 731 was disguised as a public health facility. It was actually a bioweapons complex the size of a small city. 20,000 staff worked there: doctors, nurses, technicians, guards. The facility had buildings dedicated to breeding infected fleas and cultivating plague bacteria, surgical theaters where vivisection was performed without anesthesia. Victims, primarily Chinese civilians, were referred to internally as logs or materials. Scientists tested the limits of human survival. They starved prisoners to document how many days a human could live without food or water. They exposed limbs to extreme cold and then amputated them. They deliberately infected people with multiple diseases simultaneously to see how they would interact in a living body. Estimates of deaths range from 3,000 directly inside the facility to 200,000 to 300,000 when accounting for biological warfare field tests, where plague-infested fleas were released over Chinese cities. The U.S. military gave the Japanese researchers immunity from prosecution in exchange for their data. 300,000 dead from weaponized disease, physical death, documented, systematic. But the deadliest experiment was run by the side that won the war, and they hid it. Number 1. Project MKUltra. The CIA's program didn't leave obvious bodies, it destroyed minds instead. From 1953 to 1973, the CIA conducted human experiments on unwitting American and Canadian citizens using LSD, sensory deprivation, hypnosis, and psychological torture to develop mind control techniques. Hundreds, possibly thousands, were secretly dosed with LSD. A military scientist named Frank Olson was given LSD without his knowledge by CIA colleagues in 1953. 9 days later, plagued by paranoia and hallucinations, he fell from a 10-story window in New York. The CIA called it suicide and covered it up for 20 years. Ted Kaczynski, who would become the Unabomber, was subjected to aggressive psychological experiments at Harvard while a CIA-employed professor tore apart his most deeply held beliefs. Operation Midnight Climax established fake brothels in San Francisco, where the CIA paid prostitutes to lure men to safe houses. Their drinks were spiked with LSD. Their reactions were observed through two-way mirrors. The psychological damage was permanent: depression, paranoia, lost productivity, destroyed relationships, suicides triggered by drug-induced trauma. The CIA destroyed the program's files in 1973. The exact death toll and number of victims will never be known. What we know is that every victim was American or Canadian, ordinary, and experimented on by their own government. Go watch the next countdown. You're not ready for what's coming.